Okay, hello everyone and welcome back. Okay, so in case you are wondering where I am, I'm actually in Munich right now, near the Technical University of Munich. I'm visiting one of their labs for 1 week. So now it's actually 9:20 a.m. Munich time. I understand that is three. Yeah, there's a 6 hours time difference between Munich and Singapore, so it's about 3 p.m. Singapore time over there, lah. Right. So I think this is still a good time to do my stream now. Alright, so today I won't be doing this for very long. I just want to go over a game which I looked at recently, recommended by one of my friends actually. And this isn't a very famous game. The players here involved are not very well-known players. They are grandmasters from Iceland, and this was played during the Icelandic Championship 1995. Right, but I want to show this game mainly to illustrate how to play with the isolated pawn, because a lot of people at our level, like they are they are very hesitant to play with the isolated pawn because it's usually seen as a long-term weakness. Okay, so in this game, we have Olafsson versus Thorhallsson in the Icelandic Championships 1995, and the game opens with knight f3 d5 with a very standard opening, Queen's Gambit accepted, and after a few moves in the opening, we see this very unique pawn structure over here with the isolated pawn. And normally what black wants to do over here is that you want to put your knight in the center to blockade, so that you can just pile up your weaknesses on this pawn over here. Now what white wants to do is to just develop the pieces as normal, and now after that you put all your rooks here on the open files, and of course in the future you want to push this pawn over here. And then when the pawn is able to be pushed, not only you get rid of that weakness or of the weakness over there, you also basically open up a lot of files and diagonals for our pieces. And once white is able to get in this d5 push, then it becomes very strong. Right. Alright, so the game continues castles, rook e1, b4, and after a few more moves, at this stage, both sides are just developing as per normal. Bishop is placed on b7 because this e6 pawn isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And now there's this battery on this diagonal, so there's some threats against h7, which is probably why black chose to play g6 over here. It is a very weird move, definitely, because the moment you play g6, I think a lot of those attacking players, the first thing they'll think of is like h4, h5, and then all kinds of chaos will ensue. And also, now white has this bishop h6 move, so it's a little bit dangerous, even though you do stop this battery at the moment. But this also offers black some chances, mainly that now this bishop can reroute to g7 or even h6. Like for example, this bishop really isn't doing much of this diagonal, so probably bishop f8, bishop g7, rook e8, and then like putting extra pressure on this isolated pawn would be quite playable. Right, so now the game continues. Bishop to h6. So white does not waste any time in exploiting this open diagonal over here. Rook to e8. And now you notice one thing. White really is just playing very simple chess. He's just centralizing all his pieces over here. You can see that the intent is quite clear. Eventually you want to prepare this d5 pawn push already. Because the moment this happens, and you take, you have this open file. And it's definitely very strong. Right. So queen to d6, b4. b4 is a good move. Basically, you're just stopping any nonsense from happening. You're also stopping knight to c5 ideas. And now, rook a c8. I mean, rook a6 definitely is a very natural move from black's perspective. Of course, you want to take over the open files, but black always needs to be careful of white's plans over here. d5 is always on the cards. So what I felt black could have considered over here is something like bishop to f8 with the idea, first of all with the idea of getting rid of this bishop, And if the bishop retreats, you go over here, you put pressure on this d4 pawn, and then after that you prepare an eventual knight to d5, rook to d8, and then you play against the isolated pawn, which is also very simple. But Black doesn't choose to do that. Black chooses to play rook ac8 instead. Possibly he has other ideas in mind, and after bishop b3, White's ideas become even more obvious now. Like, come on, man, you are literally targeting at this square. White is literally screaming at Black, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna push a d5 pawn. What are you gonna do now?" Right? And I'm not sure whether Black seems to get a hint or he's hoping for some nice tactics, but he goes for a 5-pawn break over here, which is commonly seen as a mistake because, like, dude, the entire plan of White is going to be back. I mean, White is going to push this very soon, which he does, right? And what I still felt that Black should have considered knight to d5 and then bishop to f8. So for example, knight to d5 over here, knight d5 takes, and yeah, even though both sides have isolated pawns, this position is quite drawish. Bishop to f8 can still be played at this stage, right? Yeah. So anyway, that is not played. A5 is played, and I think probably Black was hoping for something like knight takes b5. Okay, the variations given here in knight takes b5, queen to b8, I'm not so sure what the annotator was thinking over here, so I'm not going to go through the line in detail. But the other line that I looked at here was queen takes b5, and after that knight takes b4. I think there's some tactics happening on this board. But anyway, White does not do that. White goes for his usual plan with d5 instead. And after pawn takes, knight takes, a series of captures happens over here. You notice that White has... hello there, man. Hello, Kira. So anyway, after this series of exchanges, White has a very strong threat of bishop takes f7, thus indirectly attacking this queen over here. White's pieces are actually really well positioned to exploit the open files over here. This bishop is just looking at this f8 square, the rook can go back and defend. Basically, all of a sudden, after this d5 push, Black's position is just extremely exposed. And now actually, Black's position just collapses quite rapidly. He plays knight to d8 here, possibly to try and defend against this f7 threat. The idea is that after a takes b4, the threat of course is bishop takes f7, and after this it really is quite devastating. This king is just extremely exposed. Things like this are coming in, and a lot of funny stuff is going to happen. Hey, hello Andrew. It's 9 AM in Germany right now, and I'm just doing a very quick stream before I leave for my activities later at the university. Right. Instead, I think the annotator of this game suggested a more resilient move. Queen to f6 over here. Of course, you're covering this f7 square, but after bishop to g5, I think this is still very hard for Black to play, and definitely White is in the driver's seat over here. So instead, Black makes this really weird move, knight to d8, and after queen to d4, suddenly there's too many weaknesses for Black to defend. I mean, bishop f8 is pretty much forced, and after this, I think, actually after bishop to e8, you pretty much just drop this rook over here. Basically, the amount of discoordination among Black's pieces are just too much to handle. And after rook takes d8, knight e6, and rook takes f8, actually Black just resigned over here because, after rook takes f8, Black just resigned over here because the threats against White is... the threats against Black's can be too much. Already you can just take the rook over here, you win the exchange, and I think you are army material. You can also play bishop f6. Bishop takes e6 with the idea of bishop takes e7, queen to g7, and I think Black needs to trade the queens here. So let's say bishop takes e6, queen takes e6, bishop takes f7, and white is just winning over here, right? So yeah, so where was the critical point of this position? It really was back when, at this stage, when white had the isolated pawn and he was allowed to make all these preparatory moves with bishop c2, bishop b3, knight here, queen to d3, and really after this d5 pawn push, you know, and this series of exchanges, everything was just in white's favor. His pieces were just excellently placed. This bishop is just raking down this entire diagonal. This f7 square is just completely under a lot of pressure. And definitely white was better here after he was allowed to push this pawn. So I think the takeaway from this game is that this game really does illustrate very well how do you play with the isolated pawn. I mean, a lot of players, me included, we are very hesitant to take the isolated pawn position because it's commonly seen as a weakness in the endgame. But I think this game does show that the isolated pawn can be a very big strength as well if you know how to use it properly. And of course, if you are playing against the isolated pawn, you definitely want to take steps to ensure that this is not going to happen to you. Alright, so it's 3:30. Yeah, it's 3:30 p.m. Singapore time now, 9:30 Munich time. Yeah, I think I've talked enough for a day, and I need to go and do my stuff now. Right, so thank you very much, and see you in